Good evening. Welcome to the November 12th, 2024 Newmarket Planning Board meeting. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments I'm going to open and close at 7:01, as there is nobody here. Item 3 is review and approval of the minutes of October 8th. Is there a motion?
October 8th meeting minutes.
Motion's made by Bill. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jane. Any discussion?
I have one comment.
Sure.
Under what line is that? Line 62, 63. I guess I was rambling on about new roads, and I don't know if Bridget was trying to capture a snapshot there, but it doesn't quite make sense. I guess the easiest way to change it would just say, looking at conservation focus here, new roads should be, development on new roads should be avoided or minimized to maintain the natural buffer. I don't know.
Yeah, so to maintain, right.
Will was a pretty strong word. Will be avoided. I don't know that that's
Should be considered.
should be avoided. I guess.
Anybody else have any other
I have a very minor change.
changes? Sure.
On line 88, it's just missing a letter I, district and F.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that really matters.
Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Any abstentions? No?
Someone second it?
Yeah, Jane.
Jay. Okay, sorry, Jay.
Thank you. All right, now we go on to regular business, which is continued discussion of the zoning amendments we are considering. Just to update everybody, I think the last meeting, we had a lot of discussion about density and potential build-out and whatnot, especially in the downtown area. So Bart put together, you want to walk us through this spreadsheet, or it's a build-out spreadsheet, I think it was?
Yeah, it's kind of a, some assumptions are made here, so, so I just did the best I can, those, because it's going to be site-specific anywhere we go, but, so you have 3 sheets in front of you. And the first one is really to understand lot sizes, what will be needed to really accommodate the lot, like specific building for a lot. And what I did here was made an assumption based on the zoning, the lot coverage. So
Bart, can I interrupt you for a second? Where are we talking, this first page?
Page 1.
Yes.
Yeah, but where?
What part of town, where in town?
So this is only for I just T4 district, so I feel we should start there.
T4.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is all T4 right now, because I think this is more, needs to be discussed before we move in town, because it's just, there's more sensitivity here. So anyways, so this is in the T4 district. I made an assumption, so the zoning calls for 75% of the lot can be covered with stormwater infiltration. So I took that percentage and actually let me just go column to column. So the first column, lot standards, it's basically, what the zoning has been proposed. And then also how large square footage was the parking spaces, 9 by 18. And there's some, how much of a right of way, percentage, and I put 20%. And then wetland buffer 1%. So these are just kind of parameters that we use for this analysis. And then the max footprint I took based on the zoning, which has by building type, allow how big the building actually can be. And that's the maximum footprint of the building. So for instance, a small apartment would be 4,500, down it goes. And then actually storage permitted, actually it's units. So it should be switched. Yeah, just disregard the last column, that'll be fixed, but where it says stories permitted, that's actually units, max units.
Units permit, what?
Alright, so where it says stories permitted, cross out stories, or cross out the whole thing, it's supposed to be just maximum units per building. So for instance, apartment house will be only 4 units to be permitted in there, small apartment house. Yeah. I'm sorry, you just switched, but, anyway.
So what's the difference between max units and units?
The maximum number of units per building.
Yeah, and what does units per building mean? That's what you're using down here?
Yeah, so units per building, so disregard that column, because it's just a carryover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, error. So, just rename stories permitted. And just,
Right.
yeah. And so I took.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm just trying to follow with the, what, so like the first one is the small apartment, that's the building type number 8? Is that correct in our handout?
Yeah, so small apartment will be,
Yes.
yes.
So your footprint is 60 by 75, that's where you're getting the max footprint? And then you're saying there's 6 units allowed,
So it should be.
Yep, which is about 1 units.
but where is the 2 units per building? Why?
He erased that.
No,
That's correct. That's
that whole
a
column,
carryover error.
just
There's a carryover error.
Just get rid of the whole column?
Yes.
Yeah, the whole column, because the carryover error when I was bringing over the data from the spreadsheet. To
Okay.
just- To have it clean. So, yeah. So what I did then was, I added the number of mandatory parking spaces per building type.
And where does that one come from?
Well, if you multiply 162 times 6, that will give that answer. It's not in this, it's just an Excel.
It is in the dimension type, right? Parking
Right.
space, square feet.
Right, so
Oh,
what I
so-
did,
You're saying outside parking.
right. So the, for instance, if you had a 6-unit building, it's 1 space per unit or per building. So it'd be 6 mandatory spaces, parking spaces. So if you multiply that, that would be the square footage dedicated towards parking.
Yeah, the 162 is a 9 by 18 parking spot.
Correct.
Okay. So this is,
What if they all have segways?
what if they have a garage under?
Well, the plan board would have, or the well, since it's the zoning amendment,
Well, how does that go?
Yeah.
that'd be a variance. You want to get rid of it. So anyways,
Because currently there's no parking requirements in the proposed zoning, correct?
and the T5 and the T4, there's 1 per unit.
1 per unit, okay.
So we're just talking about T4.
Okay.
So 162 times, number of parking spaces, so it's 1. So for instance, for a 6-unit apartment, that'll be 6. I took that square footage, and then I added 2,000 square feet for access space onto a lot.
Okay, it's reasonable.
And then added that, and then multiplied the max lot coverage as well. And basically what I did, so for reductions, so this, if you go down further, so the point of this is to show how much square footage you actually need in order to accommodate access, infrastructure, and basically open space. And what it shows here is that in order to accommodate a 6-unit small apartment building, the minimum you probably need is a 10,000 square foot lot.
9962.
So even though the zoning calls for 5,000 square feet, in reality, you probably need a 10,000 square foot lot. Now that doesn't, probably incorporate this on, septic or whatnot, if it's water,
Septic, that's a
Yeah.
material, because that's nowhere near.
Right.
Um,
So,
But, and also it depends on the shape, right? So that would be the best case scenario.
so basically I did that for each unit type. So as you see, so small apartment house, that duplex, those that's highlighted in orange is most likely the amount of square. So if you take a original lot area, and then so like for instance, if you go to stacked duplex, probably you need a 6,000 square foot lot in order to accommodate a stacked duplex.
And that 2176 is the calculated required excess space outside of the building footprint?
Nah, that's basically building footprint. So what I did was, in order to put a duplex there, you need to accommodate that what's the stacked duplex, 1,800? You most likely need a 6,000 square foot lot.
For parking access and a 25% open space.
Correct.
So what's the 2176 represent again?
That's deductions.
That's deduction, so like, it's probably in between a
Yeah,
5,000 and 6,000 square foot.
That's the non-building area
Right.
that'll need excess to need to
Correct.
be utilized in
Correct.
order. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I was saying before. This
Yeah.
is the
Yes.
excess space.
Correct.
That's
But you
highlighted.
can't park in front of the building.
Right.
So you basically need an alleyway or shared driveway to get to behind the building.
Is that why there's a right-of-way deduction? I was kind of curious about that.
I just did that as an assumption. Yeah, for access into the lot, because you have to go behind.
It's really
the
your
house.
driveway, basically.
Driveway,
not
Or
right.
access
I'm thinking of
percentage.
it. I'm thinking of
Yeah,
the town
no, it's an
right-of-way.
access.
Driveway, so
Okay.
access driveway.
I got you.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I thought.
I would call it a right of way if it was a street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, yeah, it says ROW, so I wasn't sure if that was.
Well, yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's different than the access area.
Yeah, access is supposed to be like driveway, think of it that way, and the right of way is going to be your actual road. So disregard the right of way right now. and
Okay,
just
that's
think of
not in this
access here.
calculation?
Yep. just
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
So in your small apartment scenario,
Mhm.
a minimum lot size of being just under 10 is assuming that that's minimum buildable area, that's no buffers, correct?
Correct. So I just look on what you need if you just controlled for parking and access and the amount of open space that the zoning requires.
Right, no wetlands,
No
no other.
others.
Does it take into account the setbacks?
But,
Building
but,
setbacks?
No, it doesn't do that.
because they don't have any.
Yeah, they do.
Oh,
At T4 they do.
T4.
So, because that will make your
right.
Yeah,
lot
so-
area,
so
your build.
It would actually, your lot area would have to be bigger.
Well, you can put, well, because you can put this, you can still put a lot of that stuff in the setback,
Right.
right?
You can put your access in
Your
the
driveway
setback.
can be in the setback.
Or, wait, well, it doesn't have to be.
No,
It has to
but
be
it-
open space in it too, your open space, is part of that 25%.
and you can count the setback.
No, you can't count the right of way or the parking.
Right, but I mean the area within the setback is still
Yeah, as of
open
right now, you
space.
could, yes,
So I think
Unless it was a right of way.
correct.
Or
access.
driveway, yeah.
Excuse me, access.
taking that thought one step further, that I think there's value in having a discussion that that your access points couldn't be in the right of way, or your setbacks, right? So access can't be in the setbacks, or that your setbacks are not included in the open space. Right?
Fortunately, I have a little
Your
bit of law.
buffers can't be included as part of the open space.
Yeah, I mean, I think the setback should.
Because it
be
is
allowed
really
to
the
be.
question that, that if it's 10,000 square feet that is that is the required space, are we saying that if I have a 10,000 square foot lot, I can do this?
Maybe.
Maybe, because we're not factoring other wetlands, we're not factoring
Right.
like other
Shape,
things.
shape makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Just so I'm following, which column has the summary total of each of your scenarios? Is it this?
So this is just understanding lot, what you need to build, say by building type, what
Yeah,
size
I-
lot you
I-
need, yeah.
But where, what's the summary total for each of these? What number, what column am I looking at?
So for a small apartment, you would need, what's highlighted right here. It's
What's
kind of-
highlighted?
Yeah, what's highlighted. It's
Okay.
kind of in orange too.
It's within that box.
Yeah,
Oh,
within
yeah.
this box right here.
But they're highlighted.
But those are just some assumptions of lot sizes.
Those are what you would need based on his assumption.
So like in a 500 by 100 lot, 50 foot by 100 lot, or 5,000 square feet, it's 85 by 30 is your buildable area. Because the rest is setbacks, right?
Setbacks, and you need at least 25% open space too on the lot.
Right,
But your open
but
space can be in the setback.
the setbacks can be the open space.
Correct.
This is what I'm saying.
Correct.
Your setbacks can be the open space,
Correct.
so is it really open space?
Well, it
They're just
depends.
setbacks. Your buffers, from what I'm hearing, could be counted towards the open space. So is it really a buffer?
I didn't say that. What I said was.
No,
that
it's more of
under-
a question, Bart, not
Yeah.
that you said it. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
play that through.
So, that would have to be under you look at the wetland ordinance. And we're talking about wetland buffers or just normal buffers?
Well, let's talk about setbacks, right?
Setback.
If I have if I can use my setbacks as the 25% of my, right? I need 25% open space?
If it's not used by the road, so it's undisturbed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my setbacks become the undisturbed buffer, if you will, to an abutting property. If I put my driveway in it, I need to pick up that 25% somewhere else.
That's correct.
And then if I put my driveway in, I really haven't created a buffer to the abutting property. And not that you can't do that today, right? Durham, you can't put the driveway in the setback, but Newmarket you can. So I think every town is different, and I'm pretty sure we can.
The only time you are,
So you're saying these are slightly conservative, these numbers, because they.
No, I'm saying that if the intent is to have 25% open space on the lot, is it really driven by the design of how the site is laid out, or is it being driven that it would be open anyway because you can't build in the setback?
It could be either. Could be either. I mean, these numbers here, it's certainly very worthwhile exercise, but they are in an ideal condition.
Right.
Right, the lot is shaped perfectly to accommodate
Right.
the parking and the open space and everything else, which is very rare. So whatever these numbers are, I think ultimately for most development projects, the actual numbers would be higher for the lot sizes.
Yeah,
Just because the lots are all oddly shaped, they're not perfectly shaped for what we're doing.
And
that's not a bad thing, I'm just saying.
but
in
also
reality,
if you
that's what
can
it'd be.
include buffers as your required 25%
then
open
it goes down
space.
the other way, yeah.
Because if you can't build on it anyway, is it really, by zoning or by, our wetland
Yep.
zoning ordinances, you can't build in it anyway. So are you really,
It's still open
Well, you really-
space, though.
it's-
My opinion, it's still open space.
Well,
I mean,
if you had open space,
we were trying to accomplish.
if you require
with
the
that
open space
buffer.
to be separate, you'd only have 1,900 square feet to build on a 5,000 square foot lot. Because you'd have to take out the setbacks
Yeah.
and take 75% of the remaining land. And that's what you can build on, right?
Right.
Right.
And that's only 1,900
In
square
an
feet.
ideal
In a
situation.
5,000 square foot lot, which
Right.
you've pushed, I think you push it low
Oh.
because, so you can fit, there's one thing that fits on a 5,000 square foot lot, right?
Probably a townhouse.
And that's the townhouse per this chart.
Yeah.
right? And then,
Yeah, I mean, those are all things we have to work out as we go through this.
so where do you put that open
Definition
space?
of open space, and
Right.
what's allowed and what isn't.
Yes.
So if you cut that, and then,
Yeah, the purpose is just to, all things being equal, minus assumptions, this is what.
So what do
most
the,
likely be.
So what does the next page go on to
20.
tell us?
Yeah,
It's gonna be 65 feet.
everyone good, moving on? We can circle back to this.
Yep.
So the next one is kind of just a 50-acre parcel, you know, nothing there, undeveloped, were to be developed. What would that look like? And this scenario is no building, you can't have more, the max building type you can have in a development of a type of building is 20%. So, you know, so for instance, you know, what I did here is I just picked, you know, small apartment house, stacked duplex, front duplex, and townhouse. So that's the mixture I put into that 20%. And what I did was, after taking out restrictions, so I basically put at 75%. So after, you know, right-of-ways, open space requirements, added in wetland buffers, so I made some assumptions. I didn't parse out what each one was, but I just made a total assumption at least 75% out of that 50 is going to not be housing, or it can't go towards the development itself.
Can you start that over, Bart? What's the assumption?
That you couldn't,
That, oh, on a 50-acre parcel, that only 25% is developable?
no, 25% is developable. That comes out to 12.5 acres.
And your reasoning for that is?
Wetlands, let's see, right-of-way, buffers, open space requirements for each of the lot, most
The
likely.
25% for
Yeah,
each?
right.
So if someone was subdividing or condominiumizing a 50-acre parcel,
Or it can just be, yeah, multiple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all the things that require, you know, based on my, you know, how wet the
Yep.
town is and everything. I just made an assumption that at least only 25% of that could really be developed. So that's, you know, not for housing. So, you know, that includes the right-of-ways, that includes streets.
developable area.
Exactly, developable area.
Because you're trying to figure out how many buildings you could fit on it. So you're like, we're gonna put buildings on 12
Which
acres.
probably isn't too far off from most of the land that's left in town.
Yeah, so again, that's an assumption. I'm happy to take suggestions too, moving forward on, you know, different assumptions and what you see what that looks like. But I just made that. And so that comes out to 12.5 acres. It's around 544,000 square feet. And after applying the, so what I did here was if there were no controls on, you know, what type of buildings it could be. Unit count, yeah. That's what, so for instance, if there was no controls on, if all things being equal, there was, you know, nothing, you just develop that 544,000 or that 12.5 acres, you get, based on, you know, the types of housing that was selected here, you get 374 building types, and it breaks it down by building type. And then that building type corresponds to units, so it's 374 buildings that will go to a unit of 997. But once you apply the 20% maximum building limit, it brings the building type down from 374 to 75 different types of buildings. And for each building type, you would have 188,900 square feet to build on for that building type. And then bring it further, it breaks it down by unit, which is
So that's all on the one lot.
right. The whole that 50 acres.
So on that 50 acres,
no,
you're
that
saying
12.5
in
acres.
the best scenario,
Yeah.
you could get 997.
That's if you
Units.
didn't, yeah, if you didn't apply the 20%.
Right,
Yeah, building
right.
type control.
But so,
Which column are you in? And where are you getting the 900?
The one next
the
to it.
next one over.
Under totals,
So that's totals. That's not, you can get
I don't
326
have a
small
900.
apartments. You can, it's at the very bottom.
997?
You're saying you
Oh,
can get,
oh,
those are
your
units.
units.
you can get that much of
Oh.
each
Right,
on that one parcel?
right, on that one parcel.
Okay, I thought you were saying you
Um,
get 326 small apartments, but you can get 326 small apartments and 60 and 181 and...
Right,
Th-
so it
these-
would actually, yeah,
These are the number of units or the number of buildings?
unit count. And
Okay,
then-
but the first column is the
Building
number of
type.
building.
Yep.
So,
54.
and again, coming back, so when the small apartment is listed here. And then what is the ATP apartment house? Which one is that one, Art?
That was the 4-unit one. That's a 4-unit.
That's
building.
the 4 to 12? The
No,
large?
it's the four building. Wherever the 4-unit building.
Yeah,
was,
so I guess the question is, under T4, the building standards, there's
Apartment house.
small apartment building, and then there's apartment house. So apartment house is which one in the handout?
The
'Cause that's 6 units.
apartment house, APT house.
APT house.
Probably
Do you know,
number 6,
That's the-
4-unit
that's the
apartment
4-unit
house.
building.
4-unit apartment house?
Yeah.
Number 6 in our zoning.
number 6 is the apartment
I believe
house.
that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
So in the T4, what is not being proposed is a walk-up apartment building,
Correct.
a large 4 to 12 unit, Main Street not,
Correct.
walk-up courtyard not.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
You sure that's a lot of buildings.
the way I look at this is I think the third column bar, or in the total buildings allowed, 20% max limit,
No,
is-
all units.
the number estimated by taking into account that you have to have open space, you have to have access, right? So that's the more realistic number.
But why, and I'm sorry not to have multiple conversations going.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Can you explain the 20% max limit again?
The idea is to limit the building, so you don't have, one swath of one building type. The idea is to have a diversity of housing types.
Oh,
maximum-
did I miss that?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Well, but wouldn't the developer just subdivide the parcel? And
No,
then,
because there'll be planning board review of this, so
yeah,
basically.
but someone could just come in and subdivide, because we're not gonna have any zoning and no,
Bart, excuse me, I think this is saying 20%. The first column is the max building count, right?
Yep.
That's assuming you can develop the full 50 acres.
No, it's
no.
12.5 acres, but you didn't have a
Right.
control on the building type. So there's a 20%
Okay.
control on the building type. So this shows you
Okay.
what you could do
Yeah.
maximum if you didn't
Okay.
have any
How
regulations.
did you figure that out?
but that's if a developer came before
You-
us with a 50-acre lot.
Right, right.
Did you run like the footprint listed, like for a side-by-side duplex?
Yeah,
You know,
so
covers
basically,
3,000
I
square
took the- So small apartment,
We
the
came
first
back to the
page?
first page.
the assumption that you need a 10,000 square foot lot for a small apartment, but 6-unit building. I took that, and then the square footage, and you divide that by the 1,000, or
If you need a 10,000 square foot lot for a small apartment, that's 10,000 times 54 for the number of square feet you'd need for a small apartment building, right?
yeah, so this would be the max, so figure this way, if you just did small apartment, only small apartments, it'd be 54 buildings of
On the
6
12
units.
and a half acres.
Correct, on the 12.
Okay,
you
because
could-
there's a,
if
so
you
there shouldn't
can
be a total
only
at the
do
bottom
that.
then.
Right, no.
No, right.
Okay, that was
so
confusing me.
that's
I'm
what I
like,
was-
these
So the
totals
total
don't
here
work.
makes no sense.
No, yeah,
Right.
the
Yeah.
total's out.
Okay, because I'm
Yeah.
like, how can you fit that much on there? That doesn't make any
This,
sense. I was doing
this
some
total
math.
makes no sense.
None of them do, I
Right.
don't think. I don't think any do. Maybe the,
Well,
No,
only
but
the
next
70,
one does, the 75.
the total building does. But then again, and then it's the max units of the total buildings.
You
What's
can't
that
see
number?
it, so it's the green, it's highlighting green, it's just the ink.
Yeah,
So basically it's the townhouse, the front back duplex, the stack duplex, the apartment house and small apartment. Those are the building types I selected for for this type of development. Because you're going to go up in this scenario, 20% of the building type. I just randomly selected that.
You just randomly selected the 20%?
I made that assumption. I said, what if we
Okay.
did 20% control?
That was it's not in, that wasn't a proposal.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, Bart,
Yeah.
there's a lot being,
Yep.
Good concept.
There's a lot to digest.
yeah,
Yeah.
To make it mixed.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
And
So,
then-
this is a concept.
correct.
What if we limit the percentage?
If you had a large
Yeah.
parcel that you want to develop, what if we limited the building types to a max amount, which is 20, of the development, only 20% can be of this building type.
Mhm.
Right? So the idea is you don't have a homogeneous neighborhood of building types.
Okay,
That's interesting.
So
that's just a new concept.
that's a new concept.
Interesting.
This scenario. So that's that'd be 75 buildings.
So you have a diversity of housing style
Yep.
on a large acre parcel.
Yeah, I mean, that, it could be, ownership is not assumed here.
Right?
Yeah, it's just, if it were to be developed, then this is what buildings you see in that whole development.
And you're not allowing single-family homes.
No, I just made assumption, those townhouses single.
Well, they are allowing them.
Well, townhouse says single-family, but it's multi-unit, single-family.
Right.
Right, I think.
He just hasn't put any in. But they
Is-
are
what's-
permitted.
Is live-work can be a single-family home,
Yep,
right?
so
Yeah.
what I did is, I was developer, I said, I want to develop these types.
Mhm.
I chose these, you could mix it around, you could add single family, you could add, different ones, but just this scenario, just for discussion purposes, this is one way it could look like.
Sure.
And so the 108,000, that is the literal footprint of the buildings?
That's the maximum amount of square footage you can use for one building type,
Oh, okay,
out of the 544.
44, yeah.
Where are you, Scott?
Right
Um,
next.
On the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4 columns over from the left.
The 1089?
Yeah. The 1089 is apparently the maximum area you can use, because it's 20% per building, so it's 5 types. So that's 544,000 divided by 5.
Yeah, so it's a max per building type,
Yeah.
max space per building type. All right, so Bart, no, so
And
I know we're
building
getting
types.
stuck in the weeds here. It's a lot of information, but you come out with basically 199 units
Right,
could be built on that 50-acre parcel
right,
with the assumptions you've made and with the types of buildings you've chosen and all that.
right.
And what is a student?
So there's a recent report,
Before we jump into the students,
Okay.
just for comparison, I was just wondering how many single-family houses would we build in 12.5 acres?
Well,
I mean, was the golf course a good comparison? Is that 50 acres or 12?
I don't know the actual acreage.
no.
Well, the thing is, if somebody built
52,
single-family
yeah.
homes, they wouldn't have the restrictions, they wouldn't have these restrictions, right? So you'd be building it on the full 50 minus the wetlands that you,
It'd be like the traditional open space.
But it'd be,
oh, it could be.
And that's
it'd
what
be
that
less
was.
than 50. probably,
What they built,
right?
50?
It'd be allowed
52,
199.
52 out at the
Yeah.
golf course. I'm just
Right.
trying to think, what, in each of those lots is 7,000 square feet on average?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that
They're
was
small.
50 acres or
Small.
less than 50
They're
acres
very
they built that
small.
on.
Oh, definitely.
'Cause I think the golf course was a little bit over 100, 120, and
But that's
50, 60 or so stayed with the golf course, and the rest was for the open space development.
Well,
Probably 12,
let's use Moody
15
Point as
acres
an
of
example, because that's a
developable land.
mix. There's 45 acres that's developed with the roads and the lots for 100 houses.
I don't think.
I was
buffers
But that's
should
just
be
the
get to
developed
a different
area,
count
level
on
of
them.
scale.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, how does 199 compare to single-family homes?
Let's just say it's less than 50. It's got to be less than 50.
Well, I think there's, like we just said, the golf
I think
course
it's
is
close to
roughly
50.
52 units on
Yeah.
roughly 50 acres.
So we get 199
An open
versus
space.
50.
So,
Wonder how many, but,
units, but the
But-
footprints wouldn't be necessarily.
and the population might be different.
It would be, absolutely would be. All right.
So, question mark, with the incorporation of the concept of a limitation of 20% of each, of any one particular housing type, and 20% being the number of units or the number of buildings? So 20% building type. This represents the worst-case scenario?
This represents a scenario where you would control the building types based on the ones that I selected, which is most intense use, so the small apartment, the apartment house, and a couple duplexes, styles, and townhouse. So I figured most intense use by building type, and then population-wise, like the townhouse, because they're mostly single family, they're gonna probably have more children than the apartment houses.
Oh, okay, so let me back up again. I really apologize for this. I know, because, so when I look at the total buildings allowed by 20% max limit, this, if this was part of the, you know, the ordinance, these would be the number of buildings for each of these types of units in this column,
Yes,
and the
correct.
total number of buildings would be 75 when you add them up.
Correct.
Okay. So therefore, because of the limitation, these limitations would be the max of each of those types.
Correct.
So 75 buildings max. And if you carry that out, you'd have basically 200 units, 199?
Yeah, right.
All right. So I guess you lost me when you were picking out, and I can see the green and the white, but you kind of lost me as to what we were talking about there, as to,
The green represents, so what I should have done is just take out the white. It would have been much more easier to follow. So disregard the white columns. The green columns represents the type of buildings that are selected for this analysis, this specific development.
oh,
And
so if I add up all of the
All the
column,
green.
it doesn't come to
if
199?
you add all the green, it comes to 75. If you
Oh,
have
okay.
all the green.
75 is
yeah.
green, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
So he just chose to pick those 5.
Okay,
The idea was to
Types.
highlight, you
Yeah.
know, this is what's allowed.
yeah,
This is what I selected out of this list of allowances, and the green represents that, what those counts would be.
okay, that's the green. So in your opinion, is worst case scenario, with the assumptions that it would be 20% limitation?
I wouldn't necessarily characterize worst case scenario. I would say this, you know, it would maximize.
Max build out.
Max build out.
Which is only occurring on 12.5 acres
Yeah.
or a
Right.
50-acre lot.
Right, which is
Right.
either preserved or, you know, underutilized,
Right.
not utilized for other purposes.
And the student count came from that report we got a
Correct.
couple months ago, basically the.
Yep, from New Hampshire Housing.
Yep.
Again, assumptions.
And again, it's units, it's not people. but
Correct.
The students are people.
Correct.
You're averaging, what, 2.5 people per household, or?
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering, because you got 199 units, but only 50 people.
No,
so-
50
50
students.
So townhouses are gonna yield more students than an apartment house. You know, like the more multifamily buildings, typically, you're not gonna have a higher unit count. Meanwhile, our population is
A higher
changing.
student count, right?
Student count. Household sizes are shrinking as well. So again, this is all based on information that we have right now, most current information, these are the scenarios, this is the data or variables put into it.
And to make these developments work nowadays, generally, because of parking and other restrictions, your developers are often with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms.
Right,
With
so
fewer 3 bedrooms
that's
nowadays, a lot of
another
1 and 2 bedrooms.
another thing that we can consider too is if you want to control density, but bedroom count as well. That's something to consider.
Just out of curiosity, if we built these 50 single-family homes, how many units is a single-family home?
One unit.
Well, okay, but by this definition, it's got to be more than one.
He hasn't incorporated in any,
Single family.
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
kind of,
You're
one of these units is like for a person to be in the unit, right? But in a single-family home, we're going to have multiple people, right?
that's the point. So that's why you're gonna see like more children in single family homes
Yeah.
probably than you would in apartment houses.
And some of these would be one bedroom, which would be one person or
Yeah.
a couple. Some would be two bedrooms, which could be,
That's what I was thinking, a
Single
single-family
mother or
home would be
father
more like
would be-
2 units.
That's the
Well,
thing, that's what I was.
I mean,
kind of-
by
so
bedroom,
equivalent.
that's a bedroom count thing, yes.
Yeah.
Bedroom,
Yeah.
You can regulate like that. Anyways, so I didn't do it for this. So anyways, if you were to add all the green up moving forward, tax revenue, so I basically, the analysis that Ivy did, I took the value of, the building types, how much, and then incorporated into, just multiplied that, by the unit count to get the total tax revenue that the town would generate. Again,
That's per year,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, per year.
The loss isn't a per year loss, is it? Is that initial build?
Just
When they
initial,
pay-
just initial, I just took it out initial, so.
Yeah, that's an initial year.
Yeah. And then I just, refined it to how much per 1,000 square feet. And then, this student ratio by building type, shows you like how many students statistically you would find in a type of building. It's the total student costs. So basically I took 17,825 per student in the state of New Hampshire. And the state chips in $4,186 typically, so yielding a total of $13,635.39 that the town pays per student. And then I, just did the math right there for each building type based on the ratio, how many students there were. So, the student count multiplied by the 13,000, shows, then it gives you that, how much money, so total student cost, and then I made an assumption this is all water and sewer. So, it shows how much, in system development charges that, this type of development will bring in, and also impact fees. And then, I just show the total, revenue minus the student costs. This development would do. I didn't incorporate the impact fees in here, so I just said revenue of this development minus the cost, student costs, and thus be a net positive under these assumptions.
So question on the tax revenue per 1,000 square feet. Can you explain?
I just wanted to show you how much this would, per thousand, like a building type.
Well, let me say, like, as a townhouse, your tax revenue per 1,000 square feet, 574. A 2,000, but I don't think you mean to say that a 2,000 square foot condo is only paying, $1,000, $150 a year. When the actual tax revenue from a townhouse would be, a 2,000 square foot townhouse will probably, a brand new, is going to be like $7,000 or $8,000 a year.
Right, so per 1,000 square feet, so you multiply that by 2,000.
Yeah, that's where I'm confused about. So a 2,000 square foot condo is gonna have new construction, they're gonna pay between $7,000 and $8,000 a year in taxes.
Again, there's an assumption made on how much tax revenue per year that based on the report, do you have the report? Do you have Ivory, you have the zoning?
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
There should be analysis on how much a new a townhouse.
I didn't see that in here, did you?
I know. Is that in the school thing?
It was in the packet that we presented in July. Let me pull it up.
Well, I guess
I think
I'm trying
what you're saying, that must
to,
be the net.
I'm trying to understand what the 574.50 represents. When a 2,000 square foot condo is gonna be between $7,000 and $8,000 a year in
Is it this one?
taxes.
Bart?
No, not that one. It's the initial packet that we gave you for the zoning changes in July.
It's certainly gonna be a hell of a lot more than $1,000.
So again, there was some assumptions made. I think
Yeah, it's, we're trying to understand the process. And it's a valid question, but there's gonna be a lot of back and
The
forth.
handouts.
let's see if I can find it on our website.
Well, I don't think we need to do that tonight, Barb, anyways. I mean, that number is certainly low. But the idea of what you're showing here is that on a 50-acre parcel that you can develop basically 12 and a half acres with some restrictions on building count, percentage of buildings, you could roughly get 200 units.
I think the point being,
Right.
from the tax revenue standpoint is if you have just single-family homes, if you have more of a mixture, the value per square, or, the value per 1,000 square feet is much higher than you would, if you just developed it all single-family. That's the point I was trying to make. So in the next scenario,
Yeah,
would be
I mean,
townhouses.
Yeah.
So I'll be happy to take in any type of information, from a tax revenue standpoint, you think that should be incorporated.
Yeah,
And,
I'll look at this in the next week or so, and I'll get you some comments. I think it's a worthwhile exercise. It kind of takes a scenario that could happen.
Are we basically saying that any change that you're talking about would be further revenue positive?
Yes.
Yeah, because this doesn't make
So
sense, right?
the point really is that it's a revenue positive endeavor,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Because we're adding
And that is
more
just-
units per acre.
Right.
Correct.
an acre.
Right, right.
Correct.
And whether or not it's the exact numbers,
Correct.
it's just, it's not gonna cost us more money.
Right. Well, and the thing is, the balancing act is, would you rather have 30-plus acres remain kind of open, undeveloped, and have 200 units here? Would you rather have 50 houses?
Well, doing the math, your 50 houses is gonna bring in about $736,000. 850 a house, it'd probably be more, but,
How much?
so if we just do the straight math, right? If you have $850,000 as a typical new house, if that's even low for Newmarket now,
Who can afford that?
well, that's what's selling, because when people are building up on Bennett, right? I mean, that's what is here. I get your point, who can afford, I'm just trying to do the math, right?
Yeah.
So if a builder's not gonna build them for less than that, let me use that more as a scenario. So if you had 50 of them at 850, because I think we were talking that would be 50 houses
Yeah.
on the 50 acres, I think everyone was kind of in agreement on that. And what's our new rate, is 1733?
1740, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so it's $740,000 if you had all single-family houses. So to Bart's point, in his scenario here, the total revenues with the mix, and this is with the 20% limits?
Yep.
So Bart's saying that, as I understand it, it's like, 1.27,
Significantly higher.
Right.
because you have a mix, and it's not just that it's a higher tax revenue, you've got a whole broad diversity of housing styles.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, the fact of the matter is, not that the planning board can control it, we can kind of push it in one direction or another, is, I think there's a thought that we don't need a whole lot more million-dollar houses built. We need some more affordable housing for the general population.
What's the
can-
definition of affordable?
Oh, it's what, 80%? You have to be able to afford the house at 80% of the regional
Right,
income?
that's what I thought as well, I just want to make sure I understood what you're saying.
I think the idea would be, not just characterized as affordable housing, but, for different people in different economic situations to be able to purchase a house, or live in a house, or rent from a house. That's the idea, to accommodate a whole swath of folks that live in the market, in different economic scales.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's been complaints in town over how expensive it is for rentals now.
Yeah,
Nothing we can control.
no,
What would
it's
a
what,
townhouse
but-
sell for?
New construction,
Yeah.
depending on, they probably would build them around 1,200 to 1,400 square feet, and they would sell for somewhere in the 550 to 600s.
Yeah, so that's at least a lot better than 850, right?
Well, the townhouses up on top of the hill
They're in the 5s by resale.
aren't they higher than that?
Oh, they're in the 9s.
The newer
The big
ones,
ones.
but they're big ones.
Yeah.
They're big ones.
They're also more affordable from what they were saying that I was just listening to is because there's a lot less maintenance fees. Like, because you're not maintaining a yard and repaving a driveway and, there's a lot more shared items, so the the cost of the unit's less and the long-term maintenance of the unit is less.
Yeah.
So it makes it more affordable.
You know, some towns they just have a regulation that you have to have X number of square feet per unit on a lot. You know, 3,000 square feet per unit.
Oh,
Oh, of extra
Really?
space outside the building?
that's to keep the riffraff out, right?
No, no.
No, that generally allows more density.
I guess we.
3,000
can you
square feet of
repeat what
living
you-
space?
Yeah.
No, a
No.
lot, no, not of
No.
living space. 3,000 square feet on a lot per unit. So if you had a 30,000 square foot lot and it was in ideal shape and everything, you could have 10 units on it.
Okay.
They're zoning by the developability of the actual lot.
Yeah,
They want 3,000 square feet developable area
yes.
per unit.
Yes.
So 3,000 square feet of developable land.
Oh, I thought you
What is
meant
developable land?
each unit had to be 3,000 square.
Oh,
That-
yeah, no,
yeah,
maybe I
that-
misspoke on
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, we need 3,000.
Yeah.
no. So, Bart, thank you for doing this. It's a lot to digest. It is kind of what we asked for. We asked for some sort of analysis. We took a sample, so it does give us an idea.
But I think,
Go
this
ahead.
was refined a little more, and then you wanted to see what like a 5-acre parcel would look like. You'll see that you're not gonna really cram it, based on, those assumptions. Again, they're assumptions, but I just wanted to kind of show really, the value of, if you were to mix the building types, and then show you that there's gonna be a lot of preservation as well.
So this gives us
Well,
some,
preservation, well, there'll be areas not developed.
Maybe. Unless it's developable. I mean, you're
Well,
talking
yeah,
about
this is the assumption.
non-developable
Correct.
land.
Yeah.
Right,
That already wouldn't be developed.
right, but
But this requires sewer, right?
I made an assumption everything's water,
Yes.
sewer,
Yeah.
and the zoning requires it.
Right.
As well.
If you didn't have water and sewer, these
You couldn't get
numbers
this
wouldn't,
density.
you couldn't get anywhere near that density.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I guess this gives us some idea of what the bigger parcels out on Bay Road, the added density, the added number of units might happen on some of those larger parcels.
In an ideal 50 acres, it would be, say, 3 or 4 times this number. Say it was 100% developable.
Right,
But you're still,
But
I
we
don't
don't,
think
that's
you ever
not
get
the
into that
reality.
situation.
But it is for small
no, but
lots.
I'm just saying it's somewhere in between probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So, Bart, did you give any more thought about buffers to abutting properties where the zone just will change so dramatically?
No, not for this analysis, but I think it's worth exploring, like when you have that transition, depending on where you are in town, I think. They'll say, for instance, in the T4, T5, that's kind of blended already, like say the corridor, where T4, T5 already are,
Oh, where they're meeting?
where they're meeting.
Yeah.
But as you go further out, if, say T4 and then the existing zoning, I think, I think there should be some sort of transition. You want to create that transition. So, again, maybe it's more layered, within the T4, on building types. So maybe it needs a little more refinement. I think it makes sense because the idea is you're building up to a, middle of town, density-wise. So.
In your scenario, though, there's probably, I don't know. I'm not that. I mean, this is relatively in town, right? You mean like at the east end of Bay Road, at the east end where this will end and will transition into the larger parcels. Won't it kind of probably develop naturally?
Like the existing undeveloped land there?
Or I just mean that if you're gonna, say this build out happened out there, right? I mean, there's gonna be undevelopable land. It could be frontage. It might not be frontage. You just don't even know how that transition's gonna develop. And the developer, what do you? What do you do? Do you actually create a strip zone in between?
Well, that's what I think.
Or do you,
Well, you're going from a high-intensity zone to single-family 2-acre parcel,
right,
like, right there.
right. So
Now,
that's what I'm asking, you create a strip
I think that was more what Bart was saying, that he wanted to give that more thought.
only on the road, or would it go like all the way across to the next road?
No, I think it would go all the way across, it's not just on the road.
Yeah, I
It would
think
be a
it's
transition
really
all the way
about the
through.
transition to the next zone.
If you did that by parcels, it would be.
No, you do it by zone.
But you do
so-
by
So I
zone.
think,
No, I know, but if you, but I was saying
Yeah, by
last
parcel.
time, I was like, just draw the zone across the middle of the parcels, because you could change it. But if you go by parcel shape to create the zone, you can end up with some.
Our
How do you get
current
from Bay Road
zoning
to
is by
Dame? How do you get
parcel.
from Bay Road to Dame Road and create a
it's
buffer?
already like
You can.
Well, that one, you have the, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's
split zones anymore.
So you've got the open, you have a great buffer because you have open space with the boulders, right? So that creates its own buffer, right? You don't have the buffer between, say, the large acre parcel, right? And then the, like we were on, right? Now all of a sudden you got the 2-acre parcel right there. And you got, houses that are 30 to 50 feet off the road.
I think,
And that's all developable land right up against there.
But what's
Sorry,
the,
Bart.
so what does the house, so you have the 2-acre house, and then you have how much space between the house on 2 acres and this higher density? Like how much length of road frontage? And what's the
You
size
don't-
of, what's the size of that
You have
house?
30 feet, right? Because there's no setbacks.
No, not frontage, because so if you want to create,
Yeah.
so you've got a road, right? And you got a 2-acre lot, and then you have high density.
Right?
How far does this need to be? And what's the size building that you're willing to have there?
I
Because that's
think
the
that
question
was-
that you're asking, right?
Well, that's the question is there some kind of a buffer?
Right, that's what I'm
Right.
asking, like, what, that's why I'm asking, like,
a
what are you
setback is a
envisioning?
buffer, but with no
Wh- wh-
setbacks.
Are you envisioning a buffer on the parcel or a strip of zoning?
I would think on the parcel, because we have setbacks now.
so I think probably the easiest way to regulate this, if you abut a transitioning zone, if the property does, just, I'm
Like our-
spitballing
like
right
open
now.
That's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
because I have no idea what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Then you have to have X amount of feet of undevelopable land, or only this building type
setback.
can be.
It's gotta be a wooded buffer, presumably because you're trying to
The
screen the
anything.
vision, you
Well,
don't
like-
wanna
like-
see it, or you
Well,
don't
we do that with
wanna.
our open space, right?
Well, that's what I'm asking,
You've got
is it
the
you don't wanna
buffer.
see the neighbor being high density, or you don't wanna be close to the neighbor being high density, or like, what's the,
Well,
what are we
you'll-
trying to create? What's, what's the?
Well,
a
you're,
marriage.
I think you just
well,
don't
what
want
you're
one
not
on top
trying
of
to
the other.
create is a diminution of value of an abutting property. Is what you're trying to not create through
That's a whole-
zoning.
you know,
Right.
Does
And
a
when
hundred
maybe
foot,
we-
does a
well,
100 feet of wood stop that from happening?
How
That's what I'm trying to ask, like,
subjective
what,
is that,
like,
though?
what,
Well, the current zoning is 40-foot setback, right?
Or
The
is that
current
R1?
zoning.
Yeah. No, size.
When I say
think
setback, size
is
of the-
25, I think.
In R1 zone?
I think so, yeah.
But, there is a setback. So now you're thinking you got at least 50 feet between buildings, because
Mm-hmm.
you got 25 on each side.
right. So,
Do we want more in the transition zone?
that's what I'm trying to ask, because I'm trying to
Yeah.
envision this transition,
Yeah.
if
We don't
it's
have
just
an
like
answer to that.
woods,
Yeah.
or if
Well,
it's,
what was
Or
the
is it a different
reasoning
house type,
where,
or
I
if
think
it's
our
a-
open space is a 100-foot buffer, isn't it?
Depending on the 75 foot.
75-foot buffer for open space
Yeah.
to a property line. And so why was that?
was it to create a corridor?
No, it's just arbitrary.
No, I think it was because you're
arbitrary? I don't
clustering
know.
everything
Yeah.
together,
Yeah,
And
because you're trying to create a buffer
doing a
around it.
buffer around it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was more for, it wasn't to protect the neighbor from the neighbor, it was to give a wildlife corridor, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think it was.
No, it's protect the neighbor from the neighbor,
Neighbors.
zoning
From the
to
neighbor from
zone, because you're
seeing-
clustering, right? Instead
that's
of
all it
everybody
was.
having 2 acres, you're now all of a
It's
sudden you're on a
25
half an
side
acre.
rear.
It was
40
definitely
It's
not
interesting,
about-
it's like trying to protect, I consider a 2-acre lot kind of suburbia already. So you're trying to protect suburbia from suburbia almost, it seems. Like a waste of land, I guess. I mean,
We don't have to do it.
No, I'm not saying that's,
discussion.
I'm not saying,
No.
it's just a perspective, and
Right.
I'm always willing to be convinced otherwise of anything,
No,
so.
no, I agree.
I think it needs consideration.
Because even, yeah, I mean, any buffer is arbitrary, right? We could say 100 feet. Now, is 100 feet adequate for a house that's in a field, and they're building on another field, so you can see right to it? Or do you ask for a landscape buffer? You know, versus a wooded parcel where you may not see through it.
So
And
what
that's
was
gonna
the
protect
typical,
value?
well, Bart, what was the typical thought process when the open space design zoning was starting to come through, where they were creating these large
It's
buffers?
just preservation purpose mostly. Like cluster your
Right,
development and then preserve what's worth preserving.
That's what I thought
Ideally.
they were trying to create wildlife buffers between the groups of houses.
but it
so
was
that
the,
passage-
the buffer was a property line setback.
I
Right,
In
think-
some cases, but it also followed the natural, like, the actual open space itself. So, I mean, you could really, if, say, depending on, I'm thinking like Boulder. They put that in the middle because that's the developable land, and then they had
Yeah.
all this wetlands and space around it. It was just a circumstance. So I don't think there's a necessary like blueprint. But the zoning did call for, setbacks from property line. So it does push it in the middle more.
I think the setback on property lines were to reduce a butter's
It was from, it
concerns.
was 75% from open space though, yeah.
for open space.
Yeah, but-
Where if it was conventional, then it
Yeah.
was 25.
Right.
And it probably becomes more of an issue when
Where
you
you get
start
more
looking
density,
at
yeah.
what you're gonna develop on a smaller lot, on a 1 acre or a 2 acre lot.
Yeah, you're not gonna get that much out of it either. I mean, unless you subdivide a huge parcel, if you use the existing parcels that are already there and what is to be or could be T4.
And that's a question, if, what becomes, I mean, because we're not saying this is like an overlay kind of district, what becomes the process of somebody wanting to subdivide property in T4? I understand, but what's, if we're saying there's no road frontage, there's no setback, what, are we still going to maintain, if someone wants to subdivide, certain dimensional controls over each lot?
We would use the dimensional control, so this is the T5
Right.
that we're talking about now. We would just
T5.
overview the process of subdivision. They would propose to the planning board, this is how I'm subdividing the land, basically, and it could be, creatively configured under the zoning, how it's proposed. And then you'd just be regulating the use
Well,
and parking.
I have a 2 acre parcel, and now I'm also in the T5 zone.
Yeah.
I come before the planning board because I want to subdivide it into 4 lots. What are the dimensional controls that are going to govern that?
It would be building type.
No, I'm not building, I
I
just
know.
want to
I'll
subdivide.
subdivide it.
I just want to come
There-
before the
there are-
planning board and subdivide.
There wouldn't be in that case. It'd be basically what you want it to be. I think the only thing is frontage. There might be a frontage requirement, actually. Like how long the frontage should be. Do you have the T5 in front of you?
Yeah. I think you mean T4.
No, T4.
Is what we've been
definitely
talking
not.
about,
We've
right?
been talking about, but you were saying that.
No, I'm
Yeah.
thinking T4.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
T5 is all bits, right?
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it'd be 50 feet of frontage, 5-foot setbacks, front setbacks, 20 feet.
so if I have 2 acres with 200 feet of frontage, I can just come before the zoning board, or the planning board, and get 4 lots.
Yes.
Okay. And then, now I have my 4 lots, and now I come back before, I don't even have to come before the planning board, I go and pull a building permit for what I want to put on that lot.
You still, it depends, because I think it's still trigger site plan review because of subdivision regulations, for the building, 6-unit building.
Well, if
If it's a
if
6
that's true, yeah.
Right.
Or,
But you could subdivide it without proposing any buildings,
correct,
and then you could sell individual lots.
right. So I got a
And then they come
50 acre
back.
parcel, and I have 2,000 feet of frontage.
Right.
I'm just thinking that, I love the idea of the segmenting by percentage of the number of types of units, right? That makes total sense. But now all of a sudden, you have the creative guy that comes in and says, well, I'm just gonna subdivide first. And then I'm not gonna,
Well, I've seen where you have segmenting clauses. This is, I've seen this in other lives, where if you can't avoid certain regulations if you segment it. So if you subdivide it, and then you, like you said, you sell them off, they still have to follow, procedure. So again, I'm not saying this articulately, but we can put in language where they can't go contrary to what the zoning is or what the subdivision was purporting to be at that point. So
Yeah, so to give you an example, there's a town I do work in that has a regulation, if you do 3 or more than 3 new residential units, you either have to pay into a fund or you have to make one of them affordable. So
we can't do that here, though.
people would, no, but this is the example though, people would say, well, I'm not gonna do that, I'm just gonna subdivide the land, have 4 separate lots, and I can build, you can't stop me. The town's regulations say you can't do that. And they got taken to court, and the town was successful in defending that, which surprised the heck out of me. But
But I'm not sure
not
about
in New Hampshire, not
right?
in New Hampshire, different state.
Yeah,
you know?
because like,
But that's
I
what
think
he's
in
talking about.
Vermont, if you subdivide a property, you can't subdivide again for X number of years.
Maine.
That's
Maine,
in Maine?
Well, it
Maine.
depends how you do it.
Well,
Maine,
but there is some type of regulation,
Or if they're related.
to get around the
Right.
creative developments.
Right, Maine by right, you can subdivide, you can cut a parcel off of your land without getting any approvals.
Which is
You can only do it once every 5 years.
Once every 5 years,
Once
okay,
every
is there some,
5,
okay.
You don't have to vote, so that's
Huh.
crazy. That's crazy. But
Wow,
I think
this is getting confusing.
what we want to do next is really, one, look at these standards, look at the housing types. This is what I like for next meeting. I anticipate, some applications in, but does this make sense for the area proposed? If not, what does? So we can kind of move forward.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about like maybe the buffers, like transition buffers, what would that, and what would we want that to be?
And I would recommend that anybody on the board here that has any questions, we'll try to get them to Bart in the next couple of weeks. So if we have questions, then maybe we can get answers at the meeting. Try to keep the ball moving forward, never so slowly as it is right now, but it's a complicated topic, it's a
So
very
if-
complicated topic.
Bart, it would just be helpful if, it would be nice to number these as to, in the handout, which ones they include. Like, what's the apartment house? Right, I mean,
I was just
and
gonna-
the same on, especially on the T5 Main Street district, because there's apartment house, I don't know if that's number 6, there's multi-tenant commercial, there's no such thing, is that really multi-commercial Main?
Yeah, I'll sign them a number.
All
So
right,
it's
and then
easy
Main
to-
Street mix isn't in here, an apartment building, which was like, which one? Does that mean all of the apartment buildings, or? So
yeah.
we can get some clarification on that table.
No problem.
What is your time frame trying to get these things
Well,
to town council?
I think, not for a while, because I am optimistic that we will receive some funding to help us do this more throughout town.
Bill,
What-
here's my take on it, is, it's important to do, but I'd rather get it right. So whatever time it takes for us to do, it's
Yeah.
gonna be whatever time it takes.
Yeah,
There's a lot to think about here.
I agree, I just
And I
didn't
think it's
know if you
more
were thinking
input we
3
need from
months,
the-
6 months? or-
We're not gonna let some artificial deadline
I think it's,
make us go.
we need to move slowly, and I think we need to reach out to property owners more to understand what they want. So again, we're gonna potentially have resources to do that, and kind of try to get many people as possible to participate in how they want their property or their neighborhood to evolve.
Recommendation, we keep putting these together. It might be easier, better for the planning board, more productive if we focus on, we want to do T5, okay? That's the extension of Main Street. I think we have a lot of information about that. We can do that more easily by, properties. Because it's just kind of easy to do a build-out scenario by each property. And I think it's also where the town really, where people want to focus when we did the visioning, where do we want housing, urban infill? We've got so we've got the two gateways. So if we focused on T5, I think that we could move that ball to faster to get
You
something
say get
before
that
the
one done
council.
first and then take on the other ones?
Yeah, I really think that would be more.
Are we,
I don't want to say easier. I think it will be more straightforward, and I think that we would be focusing on taking a very viable and huge asset that we have in the town, which is downtown, and figuring out, all right, let's get the ball moving forward so that we can open up opportunities to continue to expand the downtown corridor.
what's everybody think?
Are you saying that to get it finalized and get it to town council for approval, and then tackle T5 after that?
Yeah. T4 after. We
What's-
can focus on, we can just focus on this corridor.
What do you think's more pressing for people in town?
I think more opportunities is what we have in the downtown and more urban infill, because then you're really gonna have a lower potential costs of housing, type of housing with fewer needs for cars, hopefully get public transportation back.
But I think to support that too, we need the surrounding neighborhoods as well to accommodate that. Because there's only so many properties on that, on T5, and the likelihood of, if we focus on also the T4, I mean, I think one at a time is good, but I would like to do more of a package, to town council to have both. We work on it. It takes a long time, but work on T5, be happy with that, then move on to T4.
Oh, I'm fine with that, but one question I had was, we're talking all about housing here, right?
Mhm.
For the most part, the commercial isn't the focus of this, right?
And the T5, it's
Well,
both.
Are there-
it should be though, right?
Well, no, that's what I don't know. The question is there, this is all kind of innovative
So it's
for
mixed use.
housing and
yeah.
mixed use.
It's
Is there
mixed use.
anything commercial that we should be considering?
And
I don't know the answer to that, obviously, I'm just.
Well, I
throwing it
think,
out there.
again, I just started on this, so, the west side of 108 from the bridge to the town line, there are 47 residential units there, and only 6 commercial. Okay? I think we really need to work on the zoning there so that we don't, number one, lose commercial to residential. And how do we encourage more mixed use along the corridor if in fact we are trying to expand the downtown? Because under the, running through some of the proposals here, the incentive is to just continue with a lot of the properties, if you look at them in the same kind of analysis that Bart did, if we adopted this today, I think we would see a lot of development along 108, but it would all be housing. And some of the key properties that are commercial now would change over to housing,
Oh, because it'd be more valuable.
for housing.
I didn't think of that.
Is there a type of commercial that you're interested in?
Well, I think the whole idea of the M2A zone was to expand the downtown. And we had the M2A going, to the south. We also wanted it to go to the north. Council only adopted to do the south, and then they really watered it down, and we're not seeing a lot of development on the south. I think because of that, because it's not, there's not the economic incentive to be able to be doing the mixed use. And so, right? And if that's really the goal, how do we address the housing needs, and as well as making sure that our the viability of the downtown and the commercial use and mixes gets expanded outward.
But I think our previous thinking was commercial development was more valuable from a tax revenue than housing, but under this scenario, it could be equal. It could be,
Yep.
the number of units
The
could
density.
be the same value as commercial. I mean, I don't think we were looking for more services.
But the developers aren't, if they have an option versus commercial and housing, the money is in housing.
Right.
It's not in commercial space.
But we need housing.
From a tax revenue,
But do we want it all housing? Do you want to lose any opportunities for additional, let's perfect example. So if we adopted T5 on the corridor, would Walter Jr. Cheney come back before us with a whole different plan and it would only be housing?
Which property?
By the gas station.
Yeah, well, over by the
Okay,
railroad
Dynamite.
tracks.
Oh, like Dynamite?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would,
100%,
yeah,
because he can't get the financing because of the commercial component.
yeah.
so was that a
There's the
better
paradox.
thing? though?
Yeah, that's what I don't
And
understand.
I would agree with that.
Is it
we
bad?
should
But if he
do
could
it.
get
I
more
think-
residential, it would work.
Yeah, I think we should.
Along with
subsidize.
continuing with the
Subsidize
residential
the
subsidizes the commercial.
Because the reality is they're hand in hand, right? To get commercial, to get businesses that grow and to survive,
You need
you need
people.
people, right? I mean, they have customers, so you gotta have housing to have businesses.
That's
right?
the mill, right?
Yeah.
It works
Well, downtown is so
Yeah.
vibrant because of all
because of the
new
mill,
housing.
because of the housing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So is it, you're bringing this up because you want to move T5 forward faster?
I think it would benefit the town to really focus on T5, move that forward faster, but not in the current proposal, because I think we're gonna lose opportunities as to, maintaining the commercial businesses in the zones it would expand to, as well as, just, not develop more commercial.
Yeah, you
'Cause-
see that in Durham, where those commercial units are not filled, they're just empty.
There's so many of them.
And they just did it for the housing, and the rent's high enough that they can subsidize an empty floor.
So I don't understand, are you saying it's bad or good?
Well, I'm saying it doesn't work.
Well,
So
it
then-
does work, Scott. It's not all vacant. There's a lot of commercial in Durham. Is there too much? Yeah, they have vacancies for commercial, but they,
There's student population.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
yeah, but they can't, but you have,
I
but
don't
there's
know, I
a
see some
lot,
pretty fancy cars that you rent.
but if you drive around the loop, there's a heck of a lot more commercial than there is in Newmarket,
Yeah,
right?
I agree, yeah.
Where I think what I would not like to see is an unintended consequence, that all of a sudden, there really just is no commercial on the gateways.
Yeah, and I think you just kind of direct the zoning through discussion that you gotta have some element there. What I want to caution is we want to be overzealous in how much we demand of commercial.
100%.
Don't understand what it is or will be.
What type of commercial?
Whatever, I mean, that's a discussion to have later.
Yeah.
Well,
But
the
I think
Cheney
that should be
building's
part of
just a bunch of small units, right? That the ground floor is just, there are the apartments that are empty, and there's the commercial.
Right. No, but I think what I'm saying is like, what type of commercial
Well, they're,
business
I
are you
think they
looking?
perceive restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
barber shops, bakeries,
Yeah.
small.
Are there things you want to see in town that you just can't get here?
Right. So I mean, are there any, surveyors, right? I mean, is that something more we want to see that, like smaller types of businesses, law offices, dentist
Jeff was
office?
saying
Yeah.
No, there's, I
that
love
ain't
small
enough.
surveyors.
Yeah.
I love small
There
surveyors.
is a
They're
new one
great.
on,
There's
there's a
several
new
of
one
them in
on,
town.
on South Main.
But
Oh, is there
I
another
guess
Yeah.
I guess I'm
That's good to
asking
me.
that because you're not looking for
Yes, they
can do all
McDonald's.
that
You're not
stuff.
looking for.
No,
No,
Jane.
no,
Right.
no.
No, so I just want to make sure that. we're
How
on
do you
the same
keep your
page.
money in town?
Well, let's
Right.
say, I mean, it's contrary to the whole, like, the whole thing we went with Ivy was to create a mix, like, mostly residential houses up close to the road on North Main Street, wasn't it?
Well,
No,
but
we-
and no one's saying not to.
We are encouraging how buildings interact with the public.
Ripon was
spaces.
mostly, we mostly spoke about residential.
Focus was on residential. no
There's
doubt.
definitely here, I mean,
There's
I think.
commercial in there,
I
but.
think,
But not enough? Is that
No,
what we're
no,
saying?
no, no, it's-
Cheney
I think-
as a whole, he's got those medical office buildings back there, right? And so if we looked at that as a group, then we could say, okay, this will be residential, that's our commercial, and then, you know, that group makes sense, right? You know what I'm saying?
So back to your original point, I kind of agree that, you know, we could move this forward, but I kind of hate to separate it because it's almost twice the effort if we got to do it again for T4.
Bill, we're doing it for the whole town. This isn't just this isn't a one-off.
go shoot the
Right?
railroad,
True.
yeah.
Well, the other point, I mean, we can only analyze so long, fatigue's gonna.
It's already set in.
That's why we have
And you read this, it's 2 more years.
Yeah.
So there's aspects of what we've discussed on this T5 that you'd like to change.
I think, yeah, I think I'd like to discuss this more
And we need to
because I think if we were to push T5 as proposed now, we won't see any commercial development. And more importantly, we have commercial properties now that would convert over to residential. So we would lose some of the commercial.
So you'll come back next month. Propose changes to that,
I'd like
which
to talk
would,
to Bart about it.
which would
you know.
encourage
Yeah,
more
yeah,
commercial
yeah.
development.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we're trying to protect our street fronts, you know, maybe that's, you know, how you, again, if you're on a street front, you subdivide it, you know, again, you can subdivide it very easily, very creatively, but if you have any type of building on the street front, maybe there has to be a commercial element there. Something, I don't know.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the current M2A,
I know, but,
but we don't, it was too little density.
Right.
right.
I mean, I think what Val is saying is valid in that, you know, if it's more economical for somebody to put in 60 units, they'll knock down their
60.
commercial building and put in 60
From what I
units.
heard from the community, I think this, you know, what we did, you know, starting off with this, I think what we want to do for the corridor at least is extend downtown, that feeling. So how do we do that?
Right.
How do we communicate? How do we
People,
communicate?
services, business, walk to
The
places.
challenge is how do we communicate to developers using the zoning that this is what they have to do?
Or, this is what they can make money doing.
Well, we have to make sure
Right.
it's economically viable to the best of
Right.
our ability. Not that
Right.
that's our
Otherwise, I won't
The
do
only
it.
way we know how to do that is.
Otherwise, we have exactly what we have now.
Aside from requiring a minimum amount of commercial space, is that not a good thing? Is that?
No, I think that's part of it, but you have to have a higher, if you're gonna require commercial space, you generally have to have a higher density of residential. Because in most cases nowadays, a commercial gets built and it sits there empty.
Right.
And if you don't have enough residential, it never gets built at all.
Right.
And if-
So maybe we just have to reduce the amount of ratio of commercial to residential.
How come the commercial residential, is that gonna go forward up the street there?
Which one?
The Occhini development?
It's still,
Up in the air.
Is
Maybe,
it-
I mean.
Cause that's
the
like
intent is to go
exactly what
forward.
we're talking
Yes.
about, trying to
They're waiting.
put up north.
Yeah, the whole ground floor
Waiting.
right now is commercial.
Right, and that's what you're saying, we should definitely try to
And I think that's-
encourage at the north end, but he's been sitting on that for a long time, right?
Well, yes.
But he's just,
Okay.
and I'd be sitting on it too if this was out, if this is being considered.
Is that why he's sitting on it? Cause it wasn't the original.
Well,
reason.
no,
No,
Originally,
originally it was
couldn't
all,
finance that.
couldn't get financing.
I think the issue
That's why
is
we've given them extension.
is that
Right,
the
so it's
banks
not,
nowadays, you'd say you're gonna build commercial, and they say, why?
so it's
You know,
not
it's
because
not
of
set
this, I guess is what I'm saying, it's
But-
really because of the financing that he hasn't been able to.
initially. I mean, I don't know what his intent, like, reason, from what I understand, it's just originally it couldn't be financed because of the economics of it at the time.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure.
But as an aside, now that we're talking about this, there may be people sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what happens here, because it may change the development.
I think, you know, at least I heard, you know, at least from community, all the community input that we did receive is people like downtown.
Right.
And they want to see that replicated.
I heard they want housing and parking.
That's it.
That's what I heard mostly. I want affordable housing and I want to park close to town.
But I love our Newmarket's downtown. I come here for
I didn't hear anyone say I
restaurants.
want
I go,
more commercial, but
yeah.
Wish we had a little parking garage.
All right,
Figure out how to get to the post office.
can I just get three short things out really quick?
Yeah.
One thing I would like is people to consider not allowing a buffer to be a wetland buffer or overlay district to be part of the buffer to the overlay district, to be part of the lot sizing calculation on very small parcels. I think it just leads to abuse of the buffer strip because they have very limited space to live in already. And if you look at our maps online and the parcel lines and the buildings and the occupied use of properties that we know have large buffers on them, you can see that the buffers on small parcels are rarely respected. And then if we're going to push more commercial use at the north end of town, like the idea is here, which I'm fine with, that we somehow consider the fact that the river is on the west side of 108, and if we're going to push all the buildings to the front of the parcel, we're going to have parking in the rear. Presumably there's got to be some parking somewhere. And I don't know that that's a great use of our riverfront parcels to have, a building and then parking and then the river. But currently they're residentially used and people enjoy the waterfront or their parks. So unless there's some other way, encourage using it as a park or something, just
Well, yeah.
so it's not occupied. We don't have riverfront parcels simply occupied for commercial use.
Yeah, I think the intent is a lot of that would be preserved anyways, just because of flood regulations too.
Right,
so
but-
it would be controlled, basically.
But the utilization of the land along the river may become like waste property behind a parking lot, like you see down in Massachusetts all over the place. You've got this overgrown, gnarly, invasive species buffer along your river frontage, right? Because it's the back of a parking lot. So
I don't know how you get around that.
maybe you limit commercial properties on that side of the road.
I think we need to take a look at each parcel. I think, as we look at that.
Just thoughts, and people don't have to consider them. I just wanted to get them out really quick. And then considering a buffer width between the zone types, like T5 and existing, like we're discussing, that if the buffer types we envisioned aren't wider than like the parcels that are there today, because if you've got 100-foot buffer between T5 and whatever's there now, where there's the 2-acre parcel, like the lots next to it might not even be 100 feet wide today.
Yeah.
It might only be 75 feet wide, so then what do you do with it? Unless you consider that lot the buffer, or no, you know what I mean? Because it's in, you know what I mean? It's in the,
Yeah, it needs to be looked at.
that was it.
Yeah, with the proposed boundary, all abutting lots are developed.
No, I mean the lot within the new T5 district, because if you impose a buffer on that parcel,
Okay.
the parcel may only be,
T4.
yeah, sorry, T4. Yeah, T4. That parcel may only be so wide, and if you make the buffer
Oh, right.
wider
No,
than
no.
the parcel, you're like,
Yeah, no, I think
We
that's
just
the
kinda
idea
did
about
something to that.
setbacks.
Proportional.
we did something to that parcel.
Yeah.
That makes it, I don't know what to say about that.
Yep.
Exactly what it does.
It can be variable buffer too, based on the lot sizes. Lot widths, we can look at each one individually. All right. I've had enough for one night. Bart, you got anything on the planning report?
Yeah, you might see this in the town council agenda. Railroad Street development, so it wasn't picked up during the review. I had to map this to the wood. Actually, one of the surveyors disagreed with another surveyor, so. Anyways, the story is, on Railroad Street, there's actually a slope easement that the town has, where South Main Street and Railroad is, coming down, the building's on the easement. So Norway Plains said the easement was dissolved. Now, what do you call it, the Horizon says, survey says it's not. And the town has the easement. And what they're proposing where that slope easement is retaining wall, which was approved by the board, and also stormwater, there's a management plan there, vegetation. So Underwood took a look at, so basically they're asking to rectify, either adjusting it or abandon it, because it complicates the development. So
Why do they think the
So-
easement was dissolved? I mean, it's
Yeah,
only
I-
dissolved if it's
So I-
recorded.
I'll say the surveyor shouldn't determine if an easement's
Yeah.
dissolved or not. They should
So
determine the
Norway said-
location of the easement, and a lawyer should determine
Right.
if the easement
Yeah,
still exists
well,
or not.
I guess there was
Should
just
be
again, it came up, and so right now, what we're considering, well, we had Underwood, so basically, I asked Underwood, is this needed anymore based on the improvements made at the site plan?
Does
you
the
know.
town require a slope easement for the road? Is that the question?
Right, so what, does the town need this? Is it being maintained by the developer who will in perpetuity with this development will have to maintain this area because it's on his
Right.
property? So Underwood said, based on the improvements, the management plans and whatnot, the town, could consider either adjusting it so the easement's not there, bring it closer to the road, or on that side, dissolving it.
So what's,
Or telling them they can't build on it.
It's already built on, so,
so that's the issue. They have actually constructed on
Correct.
the easement.
correct.
The easement wasn't shown on the surveys
Survey.
that we were provided.
Right.
So
How did it come
because,
up, how did it come up at this point in time?
Yeah.
again,
The
it was-
title thing?
it was
With
the title
the
thing.
bank?
Oh, they,
Alta survey
That's
after
odd.
the development was.
yeah, but
It was
they're not,
Norway
they're not
Pines,
usually
and then-
looking at easements.
I know,
At
Alta,
Alta?
yeah, definitely. That's
Yeah,
the
but
purpose.
you normally do that before. they give
Oh,
you
I mean the
money.
bank.
Yeah, the bank
Oh,
should
so
have
the
been,
bank hired
the
a-
lender
Yeah.
should have had
Okay.
that happening. Also
So-
self-financed.
Yeah.
Why don't this, why doesn't the town just sell them that easement?
We could sell it, we could dissolve it, we could adjust it. So
I
the-
think taxpayers would like to sell them the easement. Or take a vote here? As taxpayers?
Can we do that?
So, anyways.
They probably would have lost 3 units, right?
So, so that's in front of town.
Is the
No.
building, part of the building actually on the easement? So, wow.
That's my point.
Yeah, no, that's why I thought he just said retaining wall was.
No.
No, the building, so the retaining
Yeah.
wall and the building, so. Is
So
it,
we should
Shocked
retain
it
some
got that
ownership
far.
then.
what's that?
We should retain some ownership then.
Get some,
Yeah,
It's gonna
instead
be-
of selling, just take a percentage of the rents,
Our
right?
new,
The town of Newmarket's gonna own three apartments.
Yeah, exactly.
so conservation, town council.
Let's make it
asked-
workforce housing.
Yeah, town council asks Conservation Commission to look at it, to make sure. So we'll be talking about it.
Conservation
Yes,
Commission?
we'll be talking about it on Thursday,
Why the
About the
Conservation
slope.
Commission?
because the town council asked.
right up at 152?
Oh, are we on a different subject?
No,
Where is it?
Right
Where
over
is-
here.
No, but where is the infraction? Or where is
At
it?
the- at the
coming
road.
down.
Yeah, right at 150.
Yeah, so
Two.
like as you come down.
Yeah, it's right there on the left.
Coming down, yeah,
Why is the Concom looking at it?
because it was requested.
From what angle?
Okay,
That the conservation look at, if, is it properly maintained, is there any concerns if this were to go away?
That slope easement?
Yeah.
you'd think
Based
Public,
on-
Public Works is the one that would care about it.
Yeah, right.
Is the road gonna
But
fall
anyways,
apart?
we'll be talking further, and then.
That must have been done when they redid the bridge, huh? When
That's
they
what I would
redid
think.
that
It was
bridge.
in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Had to
They
raise
took
the
out that
road.
store.
They,
took
they
it- they
redid
took
that
it,
whole road.
Right.
It was a taking, an easement, and then it was conveyed from DOT to.
What was the store that used to be there on the other corner? Remember that building right up against the road in the bridge?
Yeah, Mungens.
That was Mungens?
Um,
It wasn't open for very long.
Or
when I was in town.
Francis.
So
Just release it.
another,
Release the easement
waiting to hear
code.
back soon for Best New Hampshire. So we'll be getting word on that. This money be going towards helping us do the other parts of town of this rezoning. So by next meeting, I should have an answer or a response. So that's exciting.
That's the grant application?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Let's see what else. A lot of master plan work coming, so we'll be ramping up the different chapters. We have a master plan subcommittee meeting tomorrow. Right now, arts and culture and tourism, they're doing chapter review, so a lot of the remaining chapters are going to be developed. So we should be very busy this summer. Don't go anywhere. Let's see, we had the charrette. If you didn't attend, I encourage you to look at.
Yeah, nice job with that.
Really a great report, great crew on really kind of distilling what the community said, during those public listening sessions, and coming up with some, concepts that we can mull over for that area. So again, there's a video online and the reports online as well on the town website. Again, probably two applications might get next meeting. One's for a landscaping company on 61 Elm Street. That's where the old auto shop was. They recently got a variance to be a landscaping company. They used
Change
to
of
be there,
use.
change of use, yeah. It was abandoned use, and then because it wasn't used for a while, and then so the landscaping company's not allowed use, so they got a use variance for that. So the planning board will be reviewing that potentially, or hopefully they file in time, I should say. And then the other one is on 60 Exeter Road, the business park. The applicant got a variance to allow 3 residential units in the medical portion of the building, so the second floor. So they have to come to planning board because when 3 more units needs a special use permit.
Can we grant it tonight?
No, can't grant something that has been submitted.
That just sounds like
Yeah.
just sounds like a bureaucracy. Man, the building's already built.
You know what?
But-
I'm really trying, Eric, okay?
I'm not blaming you, Art. I'm not blaming you. It's just, wow.
They should wait to subdivide,
Yeah.
get rid of the condo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then, like I said, Railroad, Grant Road, the elderly, that's moving along. Jimberg on top of the hill, that's closing down soon. There's nothing else out there besides Bennett Way and the other portion of 60.
Yeah, isn't there one more parcel up there, across from the water treatment plant there now? That's like the only one that's left now, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, there's one left there,
Did that Moonlight Brook study ever go up?
but we are still getting data, so we're looking to understand more where some of the contaminants are coming from. So we're still working with UNH to help us with that, to continue monitoring and understanding that, and also
So they never located the source.
non-point sources.
Are they
No,
doing
we
sampling?
just got a grant, one of these grants that you don't have to pay, a loan, but you don't have to pay it back, I don't know.
Forgiveness.
We've actually hired an additional company to come in and look at it in parallel with UNH. Everywhere they find it, but everywhere they look, they can't find, where it's coming from. They were pretty sure there was a sewer line somewhere that, was connected, but they haven't found it. They had cameras going through like 10 miles of sewer pipes, looking for stuff. And, yeah, it isn't obvious where it's coming from. And it's definitely, with DNA analysis, it's human. It's not birds, dogs.
Probably some old houses along the road that
Yeah.
have the old
Yeah.
connections still.
illicit discharge.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
now we've
that's what I
got
was just
2
thinking too.
separate people
There's an old-
working on it.
Have they
there's an old
isolated
tank that's just leaking
or
slowly
eliminated
Yeah.
portions
in every
of it?
backyard.
Yeah.
They've isolated
Right,
There's a
before the sewer
section of the
line.
stream.
Yeah.
That they never pumped
Yep.
when they
I don't think
back
so.
for
I don't think they have.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, every time they look, they find it and they can't find it, where it's coming from. For a while it was we were thinking it was storm water coming somehow.
A lot of subterranean too.
And then there was that whole thing about there was the football team pissing in the river.
That's not E. coli. E. coli from that.
Somebody in that.
Yeah, it's a nitrogen problem.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have anything else? Jeff, you got anything from the Concom?
I'll throw from the COMCOM, I did bring up, I mentioned here last month, wetland setbacks as opposed to buffers.
Yep.
And so I brought it up to just for their input. They were supportive of it. They wanted to learn more about, what's happened in town as far as development and how it could be impactful and what other towns do. So I did some looking into it. Most towns that do have a double regulation there, don't tack it on. It's usually just like there's a 40-foot wetland setback and there's a 25-foot vegetated buffer. And that creates a separation that way. But there are a number of towns in New Hampshire that do have that.
I think Hampton has
The
50-foot setback plus a 12-foot buffer to the setback.
Right, yeah. There's
Hampton
a there's a number of them
Yeah.
bookmarked. So there was some support there anyway. So for maybe talking about that again later at some point. Other than that, Concom's just doing their typical work. They're going to be doing some. If you're into Wigan Farm, they're going to be constructing an extended. We're redoing the little bridge there, and then the walkway, extending the walkway to make it out of the wetland. So I think Thursday night they'll be voting on it.
And I understand you're going to be doing a slope analysis over here to
Yeah.
figure out whether the slope's any good.
Bart's going to utilize most of the meeting time with the slope analysis discussion.
Everyone's going to be shaking their head, like, where are the Phragmites?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, all right. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's funny. I like that. I don't think there's anything else really. Rain barrels might come back to town for sale.
Yeah.
DPW is interested in working with the Concom to start selling rain barrels again in town, which we did successfully for many years on the Concom. So
This fall or next spring?
I don't know the timeline. I know the discussions are had. Maybe we'll learn more this month.
Maybe you went for Turtle Fest as a turtle head.
That's
There
a
you
good
go.
idea. That's a good idea. Little mouth with the water.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Jane?
I make a motion we adjourn. Oh,
No,
Town
Scott,
council.
do you have anything?
I can just briefly tell you, so we just got the grant from Moonlight Brook to do the second company, right? We got one of these forgivable loans to do the actual engineering. I don't know if you remember, but we have a sewer pipe that runs under the lamprey and it leaked over the summertime. So we're looking at where we want to run it over ground. We're thinking of running it over the bridge. So we actually got the money now to hire engineering to go look at that. The Eschwamp Road culvert, we're changing, we're doing the new bridge there, and we're putting it, we got a grant because we're gonna make it so it's easy for turtles to go back and forth under the bridge.
Is that the one by Price's Garage?
Someone by mine.
No.
A little farther north.
Closer to Bell.
Oh,
Yeah.
they did the roadway
Yeah.
striping and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then we approved the budget for 2026.
Good job.
I'll say they flagged the wetlands today, so that project is moving. I saw the flags out there when I got home from work. So
Jane, one more time.
I make a motion we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you all. See you next week. So next-
So what they're looking for is, like an area of high concentration, right? And they find it everywhere, but it's all this low concentration.
By how far up the street is it? Past the high school?
What's her name? The town engineer? Lindsay, yeah, call Lindsay, that's her job, that's her project.
What's the thing, is it,
That's
no report yet?
It almost
No.
makes it the Wisconsin River.
Or if there is,
Yeah.
it hasn't been
Very
very
close
close
to
now.
it. So you just.
I mean, you keep
Every-
going up and you.
Every time she talks about it with town council,
Right.
we haven't found it, and in fact,
It could be from-
now we're going out and hiring a second firm.
We'll find some